Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to New Albany High School for our Week 2 Facebook Live, looking at the second week of the 2017 high school football season. I'm Dave Purpura from ThisWeekSports.com, along with Jarrod Ulrey, and our guest here this week, New Albany football coach Pat Samanich, as his team prepares to take on the Hilliard-Bradley Jaguars tomorrow night. Pat, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, Dave. Good to see you guys. Jarrod, thanks for coming out.
You're coming off a nice opening win last week, 15-13. We talked after the game against Reynoldsburg. Those are always nail-biters, and that last week was no exception. What are some of the things you took away from another good game against them?
Right. You know what? It was a testament to our kids and our staff. They really worked the game plan to a T. And that's, you know, Reynoldsburg, we get into those games every daggone year. They're big, they're physical, they're fast, they don't quit. And so we knew it was going to be another fourth quarter, and hopefully not into the overtime games that we've had in the past. But as we really broke down the film, the targets that we needed to hit to win, the kids actually they hit them. And the big thing was the turnover battle. We were +1. Penalties was 11-2. So I thought we held our composure pretty well. We were working on a lot of things with movement during the week to make sure that, because we needed to do some things offensively with some shifts and some flops to be able to try and help us, you know, create a mismatch, you know, if we could have one somewhere. And we were able to do that first half without any complications. And then special teams. Man, we watched our special teams film yesterday as a unit, really broke down by Scott Elwer, our special teams coach. And he takes so much time watching the film of the opponents and us, and puts, you know, so much into detail in the practice time that we do it. You know, and we were able to block a punt that was designed in the end zone. They were muffing the snap, but we were almost disappointed they muffed it because we thought we were going to have a chance for 7 with a block there. Yeah. And then that last field goal, you know, when they hit it, it just didn't see it. I thought the kid didn't hit it as pure as he could have, but Jalen Jackson actually got a little piece of it with 2 fingers that gave it just enough to, you know, helpfully, you know, not make it go through. So the little things that we preach, when they come to fruition, our guys play together. You know, they continue to focus on a solution, play the next play type of stuff, the old coach speak. But when your kids are doing it, you know, we made enough execution mistakes that all those other things were able to overcome it. So, you know, our big goal this week is to correct the execution mistakes, and that's where we're at right now.
Pat, you guys made a really nice playoff run last year after not making it the couple years right before that. What did that mean for you guys as a program to get back there and get back to that level last year?
Oh, it's extremely important. And you know what? You got to remember that a kid basically is a varsity player, is a 10th, 11th, and 12th grader. And so you want them to be able to have experience in the postseason and winning championships, obviously. And you know, we have all of our signs up in the locker room from different years of, we talk about them. And what you don't want to have is a group that doesn't know what it's like to go through the postseason, because then they don't know really the work ethic that it takes, you know, to be able to go through, and they don't know how to finish in the fourth quarter. So for our guys to be able to do it last year, that kept us alive with the swing of, you know, teams that have gone through with groups that are in. It was a great lesson on adversity. I mean, you know, we started 1-3, and the relationship piece was huge. The relationship between our seniors amongst themselves and between my assistant coaches and our seniors, they stayed in the fight. They kept pushing forward. They handled adversity the way you would expect and want them to. Now, we have every single week from week 5 on was a playoff game for us, so we knew that, and they responded well. And for it to come through, man, it's a great teaching tool for these guys behind me.
Is that basically the key as to how this team has been so successful? Ever since you came here as an assistant coach, back in the Mike Golden days, Martin Guller, who you were the offensive coordinator for, those things have just applied over the past decade plus?
Without a doubt. You know, we learned so much from Mike in just 1 year, but then obviously he's one of my mentors. I'm in constant communication with him, talk to him a lot, and he really helped, you know, get us on a game plan as a program. You know, he was here 1 year, but we had to then develop good teams into finally becoming what we hope to be a good program in Central Ohio. And you know, that's the goal every year. We have 3 goals. The short-term goal is go 1-0 each week. Our second goal is the midterm goal is to win the OCC, and then week 11 is our long-term goal. And once they get to week 11, it's up to these guys to be practicing on Thanksgiving. So,
and any big key for this matchup this week? I mean, for either team, or?
Yeah, you know what? They're really explosive on offense. They've got 4 really tall, athletic receivers. They have a quarterback that is new to their system a little bit, but man, he's really seemed to get comfortable. He runs it, you know, better than the kid last year. But the kid last year was a state player of the year, so I guess he did okay. I like their running back, but then on defense, they're just so sound. You know, you got to give Coach Purpura and his staff credit. You can see him playing as a unit the way that we hope we're doing it. They know what they're doing. They know their role, and then they're running the football. So it's going to be a very, it's one of those games where field position is going to be a huge thing. Special teams has got to tip in our favor. Penalties and turnovers, and then we got to execute touchdowns in the end zone, in the red zone, no field goals.
Well, I'm looking forward to being here covering that one tomorrow night. Pat, thanks for taking a couple minutes out.
Thanks for joining us.
See you guys. Thanks for coming out.
All right, Pat Samanich, the head coach of the New Albany Eagles, 1-0. New Albany against 1-0 Bradley. 7 o'clock tomorrow night here at New Albany, and that's our game of the week. The week we're going to touch on first. They both had wins last week. We mentioned New Albany by 2 over Reynoldsburg. Hilliard-Bradley had a little bit easier of a time with Findlay. I think it was 55-20, and they put up some real gaudy numbers on offense last week.
Yeah, I mean, those wide receivers he was talking about, I think it's going to be great to see how they develop throughout the rest of the season for Bradley. And I mean, New Albany, Reynoldsburg kind of struggled on offense a little bit last week, but I think that's probably a credit to New Albany. I mean, you were at that game, and I know you were pretty impressed with New Albany's defense, right?
Oh, yeah. And Pat mentioned the turnovers. Yeah, I mean, they came at critical times. It was 2 turnovers in the last 8 minutes of the game. And I'll be honest, to the naked eye, I was sitting over in that press box for the field goal late. I couldn't tell that Jalen Jackson got a hand on it, but I tell you, it doesn't surprise me at all because he's a kid who's all over the field as a wide receiver, as a defensive back, and obviously on special teams, that he really tends to make an impact.
Yeah.
The thing that stood out, you mentioned about Bradley, I wrote down 3 wide receivers with at least 55 yards in catches, 3 backs with at least 83 yards rushing. This defense is going to have a tough time containing them tomorrow night.
Another team that's probably going to have a tough time, or I guess I should say, they're going to have a challenge, is Gahanna. And what are they going to do about Jalen Gill this week? Gahanna's playing at Westerville South on Friday. That looks like a really intriguing matchup. Gahanna's also got a pretty good running back, too, and Justice Harris rushed for 161 yards last week.
It seems to me, this is going to be a good measuring stick for both teams. And you can say that every week about a lot of games, but it sure seems like that to me this week. I mean, Gahanna wants to continue on a hot start. Westerville South definitely wants to atone for a year ago when they only won 1 game. Well, they've already got the 1 victory now. You cover Gahanna regularly. I mean, offensive talent all over the board, and that was showcased last week. Both teams are going to have their hands full tomorrow.
Well, I think it'll be really interesting to see how Gahanna's passing game, if it's able to take a step forward this week. Last year wasn't bad, but last week I believe they only passed for about 110 yards.
Okay.
And Jerome Buckner, who's their very talented wide receiver, had 9 catches for 55 yards. So maybe they try to get him a little bit loose this week and get him out in some open spaces. And David Miller too, their other talented wide receiver. And it'll be really interesting to see how Mike Lowry, how he responds this week.
205 all-purpose yards for Jalen Gill last week, 138 on the ground with 3 touchdowns rushing. Obviously, because they were on the ground, 2 catches for 67 yards with another touchdown on the receiving end of things. Another team that you cover tomorrow night, Pickerington North. They had a victory over Canadian team in week 1. They head to the other side of town to take on Dublin Jerome, who also won their opening game last week. What stands out to you about another matchup that probably is going to be quite different for both teams than last week?
Yeah, I mean, neither team was really tested in week 1. I mean, let's be honest. It seemed like North got off to a little bit of a slow start. I was covering another game at the time, but I was watching it on Twitter and paying attention to the stats and everything. Jimmy Wyrick, once he got rolling out there, I mean, they were fine, and that's going to be it's going to be an important matchup for Jerome, obviously, or how they're going to stop North's athleticism. North has a couple of really good wide receivers, Chris Scott and Ty Wiley. Both had really good games for North last week. Be interesting to see how Jerome responds to that.
Ty Wiley, also a heck of a basketball player, runs the point guard for Jason Bates and the regional runner-up team.
Basketball player too.
Absolutely, he is. Yep, yeah. It's going to be a fun year for the Panthers this winter. Looking at some of Jerome's weapons, you had a Hayden Scholl, 134 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Robert Cope, their running back, had 3 touchdowns on the ground out of that spread offense and 122 yards rushing. That's going to be one of the better matchups probably this week.
I think it's one of the more intriguing matchups for sure because we just don't know exactly where Jerome is at. I mean, they lost a lot of guys from that team last year. Mm-hmm. So this is a good measuring stick for them early this season.
Absolutely. And one of the more fun matchups, at least that we would project, not only on paper but probably on the field as well, is the Battle of Hilliard. At least 2 of the 3 schools. The other one will be here. Davidson will be at Darby, and that's always a fun rivalry game. I covered it last year. Darby dominated the first half. Davidson flipped the script on him in the second half and won 13-10. Davidson has a tendency to do that a lot of times. They're coming off a nice shutout win over Grove City.
Oh, Davidson's got a running back. Oh, he rushed for 120 yards and 3 touchdowns week 1. I'm shocked.
Ben Wright.
Ben Wright, yeah. I mean, this offense cranks out players every year, and I'm sure that they're going to figure out a way to score points. I mean, they didn't have a great opponent in week 1. Grove City's still a struggling team, so we'll see how they respond. I mean, Darby gave up an awful lot of points last week to Olentangy.
Well, on the other hand, yeah, you mentioned about great opponent. Darby did have a pretty good opponent in Olentangy last week. The big thing for Darby, they were up 17-7, and then they just lost the football at crucial times. 3 turnovers, a bad snap led to a first and goal for Olentangy. But boy, Darby showed a lot of promise last week. A few real strong running backs, quarterback, and these guys played dominant roles in the second half of last season. I think they're a lot better than what we saw against Olentangy. I mean, and these are 2 teams that not only know each other, but they think a lot like each other too. That kind of adds another layer of intrigue.
Maybe this says something about Olentangy, what they've got. Didn't they score 38 consecutive points in the middle of that game?
After a 17-7, and Darby tacked on a touchdown. Tony Santos, one of those running backs with a minute to go, to make it the 45-24 final score. Olentangy, incidentally, will try to go to 2-0 against Grove City this week.
Speaking of that district, we got Olentangy Liberty playing host to Huber Heights Wayne this week.
Yep.
I mean, that should be a matchup that everybody in the state is going to pay attention to. They want to know, how good is Liberty this year after making their state semifinal run? How good is Wayne? If anybody was watching ESPN Sunday, you might not be exactly sure how good Wayne is, but I was talking to Edward Warner, the talented linebacker for Liberty, the other day, and he was like, wow, that quarterback for the team that what do they call it? Pine Ridge. He said that quarterback, he was really impressed with that quarterback. So, maybe Wayne didn't, the team that they played is obviously really great. They're not going to be shut out again, that's for sure.
Wayne is Region 3, I believe, correct? They're still in Region 3 with most of our area,
right.
Many of our area schools.
Liberty's Region 2. So.
Exactly. I mean, and that makes that intriguing as well. I mean, if you want to look right down the road, you never know how these things can match up in the postseason.
That's true.
It's a good measuring stick for Wayne and Liberty tomorrow night.
Yeah. I mean, Wayne's got, for Ohio State fans out there, you want to pay attention to this for LaChristian Smith. His nickname is Blue. Wide receiver. Sophomore, he caught 54 passes. And last year he caught 43. I believe he was hurt for a little bit of last season. But they are, but yeah, he's a super talented athlete. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with him this week. So.
A few other games going on tomorrow night. I know that we wanted to touch on. Olentangy Orange takes on Waterston. That game is at Otterbein. So now we've hit on all 3 Olentangy schools,
right.
I guess, here in this segment. Both of them are 2-0. Orange has 1-0. Excuse me. Somebody's going to be 2-0 tomorrow night.
How good is Waterston? That is the question. We're going to find that out this week.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that's going to be one of those fun ones. Tonight there is a game. Groveport taking on Hamilton Township. That starts in about 2 hours and 15 minutes out at the Fortress Obetz, home of the MLL champion Ohio Machine.
Really nice, by the way. That is a really nice venue out there.
Yes.
I got a chance to cover a Machine game a few weeks ago, and that's a really, really sweet place to go to, I'll tell you.
Groveport looking for an opening win. They were shut out by Westerville North last week by the count of 27-0.
And Hamilton struggled too, so
yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Any other games stepping out to you that are going to be tomorrow?
Well, for City League fans, Beechcroft at Marion Franklin. That's one you got to pay attention to. Yeah, Marion Franklin had a down season last year, but that's a very well-coached team. Brian Halfley will have his guys ready. They got off to a good start, getting a win in week 1. Beechcroft, they have a new coaching staff this year. They struggled against Akron Buchtel. So this could be a real good test for them. It's going to be, I think.
Another team we want to make sure to mention, Thomas Worthington, got its first win in a while last week. They broke a 17-game losing streak. Not only beating Canal 27-20 in double overtime, but coming back 17-0 down at the half to do it. Nice win for the Cardinals.
That's
and Coach
impressive for them. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great moment for these kids after everything they've been through. I believe it's a 17-game losing streak.
Yep, and
so
31 of their previous 32 going into last week. We do want to let you know tomorrow night you might want to bundle up or bring a raincoat. The high is only going to be like 62 degrees tomorrow in early September. You can't get earlier because it's the first day of September, so make sure to stay dry. That kind of ties into something that we learned from the OCC today. There's going to be a moment of silence 5:59 at tonight's game, 6:59 at most of the other games tonight or tomorrow night for the impact of Hurricane Harvey. Of course, that ravaged southern Texas, southeast Texas, and we're going to get some of the remnants of that this weekend, but there will be a moment of silence before all the games this week. Jarrod, fun doing this again in week 2. This has been fun so far.
We'll see you next week.
All
Looking
right.
forward to it.
We will see where we'll be. We hope you join us at 3:30 next Thursday. For Jarrod, Ulrey, and for Coach Pat Samanich, I'm Dave Purpura. So long, everybody.